Welcome to Study Loop.
So for this question, we need to first start out by thinking about, what is like an oceanic ecosystem like, and what are the primary producers that are actually there. So first of all, we have an oceanic grazing food web, and a grazing food web is one in which the primary producers, which are those organisms that are able to take in usually sunlight, sometimes chemicals, in order to produce their own energy. They don't need to rely on other organisms to get their own energy. Um, and they form the base of these food webs because other organisms consume them to get that energy. Um, and so we're given like a list of options here, and we can already right out the bat get rid of animals and fungi because neither of those are primary producers. Animals are heterotrophs. They will be either like secondary or tertiary or apex predators or producers or consumers, excuse me, not producers. Um, and fungi are actually decomposers, and they do have an important role in the food web, but it is distinct from producers. And then we are given plants and phytoplankton. Now, plants are the most abundant of the primary producers on tertiary biomes. Um, but let's think about the ocean. Plants require sunlight and usually, but not always, like some sort of place to actually grow on. And if we think about the ocean, one of, if not the most common plant in the ocean is actually or a form of algae known as seaweed. Um, and the problem with seaweed, however, is that it requires a place to grow, like it has to actually root somewhere, and sunlight. But in the ocean, sunlight only reaches down a certain level. Um, and below this level, nothing, no seaweed can actually grow. And so and even then, it's kind of limited by space in the first place. So that plants might not be our answer. At last, we're given phytoplankton. Now, phytoplankton are basically small, often unicellular organisms that are capable of photosynthesis. So, like plants, they're able to take in energy from the light energy from the sun and convert it into chemical energy. And you might actually be familiar with phytoplankton in terms of like how whales largely get their food is by pretty much having their open mouths just sort of take in large swaths of phytoplankton at a time. They are like I tried to draw them, and you can actually imagine that they're like literally all throughout this entire section of the ocean. Because again, they do need sunlight, but they are able to like freely float in the ocean, and they are a lot smaller than plants, so they can take up a lot more space. And other like fish and organisms living in the ocean eat them or rely on them in some fashion to get the energy they need. Um, and so phytoplankton are actually, just based on their size and their scale, make up a massive portion of life in oceans. And because of that, they are the most frequent primary producers in an oceanic food web. So we can go ahead and say that D, phytoplankton, is our final answer.